So
Okay.
let's jump into the next thing, which was I'm going to use a house that you're familiar with, and I want to go through quickly on how to do a market analysis. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So what I showed you there was a search alert. So when you know what a buyer wants, you could put that search alert in. I would
Okay.
use the MLS itself to search for properties because it's a little more updated and easier to use for me, and I'm more used to it. However, you're really getting the same information. If I'm going to set up something and I want it to drip on them for a long time, just to send them properties to get them activated, then that's when I'm using KV Core to set up the search alert. So
Okay.
everybody that comes in should probably have a search alert set up. But if I'm calling you up and saying, hey, let's go out on Friday to look at homes, I'm selecting those homes probably from the MLS and I'm going to pick them out. So I'm really using the same data, but I'm going to narrow it down a lot more within the MLS.
Yeah.
The KV Core is
Gotcha.
really designed to kind of keep them there and kind of watch them and incubate them over time. Okay. So now I'm going to switch over to the MLS. So the first thing I'm going to do, so what is your ad? Are you do you guys rent?
Yeah. We're in apartments right now.
Okay. So you're in an apartment. So let me do this. I'm going to use my address. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to the tax record first. So that's item number one, is go to the tax record, and I'm going to put in an address. In this case, it's 8333 Canyon Oak. And hit search. Whenever you're searching for stuff, less is usually better, right? So don't put in, I didn't put in Canyon Oak Drive or place or anything like that, because you never know if you got it quite right. So when you're using a database, a lot of times the minimum amount of information you can put in is better. And then I've selected that one as my property. And so here comes the information. So what I'm looking at first is 3 bedrooms, 1,700 square feet. So 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,700 square feet. And so this is the tax record information. And I can see kind of, a lot of the information. I can see what it was assessed for, and then I can see a little bit more information about it. That 630 tells me it's got a 3-car garage, usually about
Okay.
200 square feet for each car. So
Okay.
if it was 400, that'd be a 2-car garage. That's a 3-car garage. And then you can get a little more information about it. But, for the most part, that's what it is. Also on here somewhere probably says that it has a pool, but I did not see that. Oh, pool right there. So it does say pool. Okay.
Okay.
So this is something new they've had added recently. It says that there's a pretty high indication that I'll sell. Well, I just bought it, so probably not. So I don't know how accurate that is. But it would be pretty accurate if it was based on the person before me, because they already sold. All right, so this tells you when it closed and how much the price was and how much we paid for it, that kind of thing. Okay. Listed price there, closed there, but this tells you what we actually paid. So we got it for 404. Okay.
Okay.
And this is who we bought it from. This is who they bought it from. And you can go backwards into it and kind of see that this person, Nicole Todd, when you see it go from this is a seller's name, right? So Regina sold it to Nicole, right? But the funky part is Nicole turned around and sold it to Mountain Financial. That's weird. No, Nicole lost the house. So they took the property back. There's a trustee's deed right here. So now you can start to see what the information you're getting off the property. Does that make sense? So if you're going to price a house, the first thing you want to do is find out who owns it right now. Are you talking to the owner? So if you had met me and I asked you what my house would sell for, you're confirming that Barry Mathis does indeed own the house. If you see somebody else's name here, then you probably want to figure out who are you talking to in relation to who owns the house, because only the owner of the house can sign your listing agreement. So if you're talking to somebody that doesn't own it, you need to figure out who is the owner. Oftentimes you'll find that the owner is the person you're talking to is a relative of the owner, but they're not the actual owner. So it'd be good to know, because when you go on the listing appointment, you'd like to have the real person there. So I'm going to move that one off to the side. I don't think you can see it anymore, but I've got it over on one of my other screens. And so now I'm going to come in here and do a search. And I'm going to say, well, what are properties selling for in Citrus Heights? Because that was in Citrus Heights. And we're just going to do, go ahead.
Actually, how do you find tax record on the MLS website
So
again?
can you see my screen still?
Oh, okay. Okay.
That button right there that says tax, there's actually 2 ways to do it. That's one way. is to go there, and it actually takes you from this into one called Realist, Realist. So it goes from here, but that's tied in through the MLS. So you just always go here, and that's where you'll find it. Okay.
Okay.
And so there is another way you could find it. I'll show you. 8333 Canyon Oak. And by the way, I would do this often as well. I would actually oftentimes just pull the property up. Because when I pull the property up in the MLS, there's a pretty good chance that it sold before. And if there is, then I can get some pictures and things like that that will let me know a little more about the value and the condition. Okay. So when I click on this one, this is an old one from before we bought it. But look right here. See that little APN number right there? The blue link? That will also take you to the tax record.
Okay.
Boom, right back to the tax record. Okay?
Okay.
Little bit different layout when you go to that one, but if you launch that button right there that says launch realist, it would take you back to the other one. Okay.
Okay.
So now I know a little bit more about the property. I know when it was last sold. I know a couple of times that it was sold. I can actually look at some of the pictures to get an idea of what it looked like. And so that helps me a lot in pricing it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do this interactive map. And I'm going to center it on that address. I also would do this if you remember, I did this for the Davis Hospital because I wanted to search around that property, right?
With the radius.
Yep, same kind of thing, except when I'm pricing a house, I'm always going to use a 1 mile radius. And if I want to tighten it up, if I get a lot of responses, I'll probably go down to a 3/4 mile radius, if I'm getting a whole bunch of properties, right? So there's all the houses that are for sale in a 1 mile radius around that property. Now, I happen to know this area, and I know that these houses over here are probably not good comparisons because this is a much nicer area. Woodbridge Ranch has $1 million homes in it. And so I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up just because I know where we're at. And I know that I'll get an out of area. So when I did that, I went and picked 3/4 of a mile. And now I'm going to go up here to the top. I'm going to hit edit. And I'm going to get rid of the first circle, which was 1 mile. So now I've got 1 mile, and all these little green buttons are all flags or all houses that are for sale. So when I'm going on an appointment, the first thing I'd want to do is I'd want to take a list of, I go 3 ways. This one I go all the actives. So I select all the actives, and I hit this CMA button right here, and I just hit go. This is going to give me a very simple page that's not complicated. And I would print this page out, and I'd write the word active on it, and then I'd put a dot and a circle and 3/4 of a mile right there, right? So if I'm going into a listing appointment, I would have this with me, and it's telling me what my current competition is. These are the people whose houses are on the market right now. And one of the reasons you do that is because the people that you're talking to, they've driven past these houses. You're coming from across the town. You don't even know this neighborhood, right? You've never even been to this neighborhood, but these guys know every house on this street, right? So I actually walked my neighborhood this weekend, and I passed this house, 8255, and it's for sale at 459. Okay. So I actually had somebody ask me how much that was, and yeah, that was 459. So 450 is the average. I look at the square footage. Most of these houses are smaller than the one I'm comping. Mine was 1730, I think. And most of these are smaller, and these are going for 450. If you look at this price per square foot, it's 295 times the house that we were looking at was 1753 times 1753. So that would be 517. But you got to remember that houses that are bigger are often less expensive. So you're starting to see that advantage there, right? So now you see some of that. Now I would go back into the same form, back into the same MLS, use that same circle, hit revise criteria. And we're going to do this lots and lots of times. You don't have to feel like you have to memorize this. All right, so on here, I go in here and I'm going to select one house on one lot. And that shouldn't have really got rid of very many. And then I'm going to change the active to be pendings. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to measure how is the demand for the neighborhood, right? So I'm going to uncheck all because it's got both types. So before I had green flags on here, and those were active properties, and there was only 8 of them. Now I've got 12 of them that are pending. So what that tells me is there's more houses under contract right now than there are on the market. So that means that, does that mean demand is high or demand is low?
Demand is high.
That's right. Demand is very high because the pendings are outnumbering the ones that are available. So that means that more than 50% of them, in this case, probably 60 to 70% of what was on the market has already sold. So I'll do the same thing with these. I'll take that. I could do it by using this stat button, or I like to do it if I'm going to go to an appointment. I like to use the, it makes you want to select these. I'll take this here and put it into the CMA. Now, let's say that I see something that's kind of wacky. Like, look at that one right there at 650. There's another one at 729, right? If I know that 729 and 650 is way out of the league, I'll go ahead and take those out. And then I can come up here and removed, unchecked. And I just got rid of those two. Okay? Because I know that when I looked over here, you know, I range this up and down, it'll sort for you. 495 to 350, that's my price range. The fact that I had one up at 750 was just a fluke. It's not really part of my comps. So you always want to be looking for those outliers. Also, another thing that will happen is somebody will put a number in incorrectly, and you'll see a house that is saying that it's pending at 70 million, right? Well, if you put that into your comp, it'll throw you off a lot. So you watch out for those things as well. Or you'll have a 5-acre piece of land that's sitting there. Well, that's not the same. Even if it has a house on it, that's not the same thing at all. So we're not really getting serious about that part yet, but we are wanting to pay attention to it. So here I'll do my comps. And boom, that's what I've got. These aren't comps yet. These are pendings. Now, the one thing about pendings is you don't know what price they're pending at, right? So all you know is that they're no longer available on the market. They're under contract. You know what the original price is. And most of these, you can see the original price was 443 on average. And they actually have, the list price was 444. So I don't know why, but for some reason they actually increased in price. Usually I can see which one did that. This one right here. They originally listed this property on Oxford at 389, and then they raised it to 416. Now, I don't know why they did it. There's a lot of reasons why you could do that. For one reason is, let's say that you got an offer and they asked you for a credit from the seller. Well, the seller might have said, well, I'm not going to give you a $15,000 credit, but if you raise the price to 415, then I'll give you the credit. And the reason you would do that is because that way when the appraisal comes in, it gets appraised at 415 instead of appraised at 389, because that appraised value, you couldn't change it after the appraisal. So if they change the listing price, it makes the appraiser think that it was probably worth that. Appraisers are pre-inclined to give you the list price, right? Because it causes a bunch of problems if they don't. And so unless they really think the list price is off, if it's just off by 1 or 2%, they probably would just give you the list price. I mean, if you're off by 20%, the appraiser is going to say something. But within reason, a couple of percentage points, they don't like to split hairs too much. It makes it uncomfortable for everybody. So you want to have, when you get your appraisal done, if you're going to have a credit, you want to make sure that credit's in there before the appraiser takes a look at the contract. All right, so there's that. That's what he wanted you to see there. So that's 2 parts of it. So now I've got 2 pages. I've got 2 simple pages, active properties and pending properties. Okay, so now I'm done with that. And now I'm going to come back in. And this is where it really gets to looking at comps, because actives, who really cares about that? That's what people are asking. You don't know if that's what they sold for. And pendings, that's a little bit closer. If I understand the market, I can understand, do most houses sell for what they list for in this area? You know, they probably do. In this case, it was like 101% of list price. So that we can kind of take a guess at that, but we still don't know what those sold for. And so that's not really what we're going to use as comps. When I come in here and I pick closed, I get all these other properties, right? So I'm going to uncheck all the properties. That gets rid of my pendings. And then I'm over here and I've got all these properties. Look, there's 60 of them. Well, that's way too many. I don't need that many properties. I'm in a 3/4 mile radius. What I'm going to do is use this right here to close up the dates. I really want to go back about 90 days, right? So I could go a couple of ways I could do it. I could go to today. And what is today? The 28th, right? And or I could just go 90 days back. Okay, so I can go 90 days back from the 28th. That didn't work. All right, let's do it the other way. I guess there's only one way to do it. Okay, so October, I'm going to come back here to August 1st. Okay, so there's August 1st, and now I've got 26 properties. Well, that's a little more reasonable. Okay, so on the other properties, I really didn't screen for size and square footage, or even I probably didn't screen a whole bunch for price, except for just to show you how to do it. Because when I go into those appointments, I want all the properties that are there. But on this page, I would probably do a CMA on this, just like we had done before. So these are my solds. So again, I would say on here sold, it's written right up here, closed, same thing as sold. And then I would draw my circle and tell them, hey, this is August, from August on. Again, because they're going to know these properties. They're going to ask you about one of these properties. And if you could just jump right to it, you'll look like an expert, right? They'll be like, oh yeah, you know my neighborhood, and you never even been in the neighborhood, but you've got all the properties. So always make sure these 3 pages have everything on them. I'm not using them to comp the property. I'm using them to tell me like a snapshot what's going on in the neighborhood. So once I've got this, but I am kind of using them to put some parameters about it, right? So I can see here again, there's that 450 price, right? So everything we've seen have had an average price of about that 450. So that sales price here is 470. So, and it's 1,800 square feet, so a little bit bigger than mine. So I'm starting to get an idea, somewhere between 440 and 470 is probably my right number. You see how I've started to make my mind up already, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into here, and now I'm going to start to comp the property. So everything up to here has just been a snapshot of the area, but now I'm going to get in here and really comp the property. And the way I do that is I come into my search criteria and I start to set it up. So I'm only wanting 3 bedrooms. I'm only wanting 2 bathrooms, right? So now I'm starting to be pretty, I've narrowed down a little bit. And I want square footage is probably my next item. So that was an 1,800 square foot house. So I'm going to get rid of anything that's too small, because why? Why would I want to get rid of small houses? Because small houses sell for more per square foot than big houses, right? And so if I've got 1,000 square foot house on there and my house is 1,700 square foot, if I price it like I do 1,000 square foot house, I'll be totally off. So now I've taken what was 26 houses down to 18 houses by changing the square footage. So now I'm going to come to the other side of the square footage. And I'm going to say, for the same reason, but the opposite reason, I'm going to say I don't want any big houses on there. So I had 3 houses on there that were over 2,400 square feet, right? So if I'm at 1,700, then I don't want to be over, maybe 22, 23 and 14 on this side, plus or minus about 10%, 20%. So 10% on a 1,700 square foot house is about 200 square feet. 20% is about 400 square feet. So I definitely don't want to be more than 400 square feet off. And so I'm actually going to drop this one down a little bit to 2,200 because it's just a different house. And I didn't lose anything when I did that. Well, I lost a few houses. So now I've got 12. I don't want to get tighter than 12 yet. So I'm going to take a look at these 12. Okay. So again, the only thing I've really looked at so far is square footage and bedrooms and bath. Does that make sense? All right. So here's my recent sales, and the property that I'm comping is actually included in this. So I'm going to take that one out because I don't want to use my own property as the comp, because that's what I'm comping. So now there's 11 houses. And so these are all houses that are in the area. I'm looking for anything that's odd. First thing, I'm gonna come over here and look at the age, because I know my house is built in the late 70s. I don't want anything that's brand new. I don't want any 90s. There's a 95 right there.
Mm-hmm.
That 95 house probably looks a lot nicer than my house.
Okay. What's the range you should do with years
You know,
when comparing?
it kind of depends on whether they've been upgraded or not. But this is where your biggest difference is. Like, look at this house. See, it's stucco and tile. I mean, stucco and comp roof.
Uh-huh.
It's newer construction. So I
Okay.
would say, 70s and 80s. There was a building code change in 79. So a lot of houses look a little different after 79. We didn't have
Okay.
a lot of homes built in the 80s, so that won't really come up that often, but there was a lot of homes built in the 90s. And so I would probably say 90s and newer, and I mean 89 and older kind of go together. All right, so that one is there, and I'm actually going to get it out because it's not that kind of property. So I'll take that one out, and again, use my remove unchecked. All right, so now I've got 10 properties. This is starting to be about what I'm looking for. I'm going to kind of take it sideways right here because this is a weird area. I've got some of my properties in Citrus Heights and some of them in Roseville. So which one do you think is pricier, Citrus Heights or Roseville?
Roseville.
Yeah, you're right. So in this case, I'm going to take the Roseville properties out. I wouldn't
Okay.
always do that, but in this case I will. Plus, look at them. They're all a little bit newer, right? They're a little newer.
Okay.
And they're
Yeah.
selling for a little more. So I'm going to take them out. I don't really want to go under 6 or 7 properties. So this is probably the end right here. Okay.
Okay.
So those are my 7 properties. I could do the same thing now that I did before. I can get a list because I've already got 3 papers now. I have an active, a pending, and a sold. But the sold that I have has 30 properties, 26 properties on it. So when I do it this time, I've narrowed it down from 26, which now I'm down here to this lower number of 256 a square foot. Now, one of the things I want to watch for those, look at that one right there. That one on Longden Circle is $200 a square foot, which is a lot less than the other properties. So I want to kind of understand why. So that one is 200. It was a 4-bedroom. It was actually a little bit bigger, which partially explains why it was less per square foot. But then we want to look at it just to make sure, was there anything wrong with it? No, it looks pretty normal, kind of dated, kind of cluttery. There's no theme, there's no good feel to it. So yeah, that was just a plain little house. Does have a swimming pool though. So yeah, somebody got a good deal, or it just didn't sell for very much. And it was bigger. You're seeing, 10% bigger. Our house was 1,800 square feet, and this one's 2,000. So you're seeing that drop in price per square foot. So now that I have those done, now I've kind of priced them. From here, it's just a matter of preference. You could go just like this. You could print out a report for those. I have a special report that I do called a cloud CMA. I'll walk you through it real fast, but we're not going to set it up here. You'd have to set it up on your own. There's the cloud CMA. When I click on this, it's going to bring up a new kind of report. I'm going to name it My Place. And it's got the listings of the properties that I had there. And I'm going to say 8333. All right, wants me to set a price. It's up to you what you want to set in there, but I'm going to go 425 to 475. I'm always going to put a range. I'll probably go a little tighter than that, probably about 445. So I'm always going to put a range in until I actually physically go see the house. So I've got a range that gives me some flexibility if I get there, and then let's say I get there and the neighbors are, tweakers, and they got 30 cars in front of their yard. Well, your house price just went down, right?
Okay.
In here, you can kind of see the low is 410, the high is 525, the average is 475, right in that range. And the median is the middle, 465. So that's kind of there. Then I hit customize report. In this case, I'm not going to do any customization, but I've got all of this stuff I could drop into the report if I wanted to. I'm just going to hit map. I'm just going to hit publish. And you'll see why I do it this way. This is going to give me a big stack of paper that I can print out that has some real nice pictures. It has a letter from me. It has a lot of things that I took the time to set up before I needed it, so that when I needed it, I was able to just pull it up. Then I print that package off and I can put it into a nice bound report. Okay.
Okay.
So there's the place. And I'll actually send this to you. I think I can send this over to you. Maybe. I'm going to email the report to you. All right, so there's your market. I'm going to send you all three, a live version, a slideshow, a PDF, and boom.
Cool.
All right.
Nice.
So you should have those. Just to jump into it, it would look like this. So once I get this, I would print this out. Boom. Comparative market analysis, my place, got my picture on it. And then I just can go through here's a little bit about my background, a little bit of a resume on me. Then it talks about the comparable listings. This is where the properties were. And I can go summaries of it, and then tells you, look, things are selling for much higher. They're only low 7 days on the market. And they're selling for more than what they're asking for. It's a pretty hot market.
Cool.
And then it tells you about the house. This is one of the comps. And if it had multiple pictures, here's all the rest of the pictures. So that's that property we looked at.
Oh, wow, cool.
So somebody could get an idea of what this looks like. And so boom, I'm done. I print
That's
that,
awesome.
I put it in a binder, I take it with me to the appointment, and I'm ready to go. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's cool. That it just like generates.
Yeah, 30 pages of information. You could make that 60 pages. There's a lot of background stuff that you can put in there. And I find that it gets overwhelming. So so I've got I've got 4 plain pages, and then I've got this book. Sometimes I go to a listing and all they want is the black and white pages. We never even get to the book. I leave it there with them, but I never even really talk about it because they're ready to list it. They understood the pricing. If the guy's a high D like I am and he's a fast mover, fast talker, then there's a pretty good chance that that's all he's going to want, right? But if he's more detailed, then you're going to be going over all these comps. And when you get into them, you're going to say, well, this house was plain and your house is fixed up, so yours is probably worth a little more. Or this house was 10% bigger and your house is 10% smaller. So your house is going to sell for less per square foot or more per square foot than that house. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that detailed person, you'll get into a lot of that. I know that's drinking from a fire hose. It's a lot of information, but information has taken me years to develop, and it's pretty good. If I do say so.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
It is helpful.
Yeah, so you should have an idea now of how to price a house. So that's one of the basic things real estate agents do, is tell people what their house is worth. And if you have a consistent way of doing it, then you'll get closer to the right number all the time. All right.